You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep062. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
This day could be about chocolate, it could be about soap, but it's actually about Klingons. It's the Day of the Dove on the Tricorder Transmissions. We are your hosts, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen.
Well, I guess it worked for you. I wasn't sure if that was going to go over well, but
I was even ready for it. You had warned me in advance that you weren't sure how it was gonna play, and it played wonderfully.
Oh, great. Thanks. I appreciate it. So, couple of interesting things of note here, news-wise. Well, actually, before we talk about news, I think we both got our surveys, our Kickstarter surveys from the These Are the Voyages Volume 3.
Yeah, the backer kit.
Yes, the backer kit. So I know we both filled our backer kits out, and I got a couple of more emails, and I think the backer kit is now closed, and they're officially signing away, and they're planning on shipping the books out by December 15th.
Yeah. And I was tempted to do some of those add-ons, but I ended up holding off.
Yeah, I didn't opt for any add-ons either. But I did order copies of volumes 1 and 2 for gifts for some people. So looking forward to giving those out.
Very, very lucky friends and family you have there who are going to be receiving an excellent gift for the holiday.
Yeah, I know they're going to enjoy them too, so that's great. And I know that neither one of them listened to the show, so they're not going to get a Christmas spoiler.
Nice. Yeah, that is great, man. That's you're going to make some Star Trek fans very, very happy.
Yeah,
but why aren't they listening to the show?
Well, they're not real big podcast listeners, but I know they've listened to a few episodes here and there, but they don't listen on a regular basis. So
all right, understood.
And that's all right. But I am looking forward to having my little Christmas time off with my Volume 3. I'm gonna have plenty of time to get some reading done.
Yeah. I know. I'm looking forward to jumping in and also using it as a little bit of a reference guide for our upcoming commentaries. We still have a bulk of season 3 to cover, so the book is coming just in time.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that as well. So it's going to be very, very cool. So I don't know if you heard about this. This happened a little while ago, a week and a half or so ago. But on NASA's Orion test flight that blasted off, there was actually a Captain Kirk action figure that was given to NASA by William Shatner himself on board the test flight.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a Captain Kirk in the environmental suit, which we will actually be seeing later on in season 3. So
is that the Tholian web?
Yeah, where he's kind of floating around.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll be seeing that very soon.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of cool. So the Kirk figure was on the ship along with Iron Man, a Sesame Street, the little inchworm from Sesame Street, a T-Rex, a DeLorean time machine, and a crash test dummy action figure. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I got to look. I wonder if this is the same one that NASA was accepting names, where you went to their website, you filled out a boarding pass, and they inputted your name onto, I guess, a computer chip that was going up too. I have to look at the email I got back from them and see if it was this flight or not. But I do know that my name was going into outer space.
Oh, nice! And was the chip going to float around in space? Or we're going to leave it out there?
You know what? I got to go back and look. I just got so excited by the thought of at least my name going into space that I signed right up.
That would be pretty awesome if they left like a computer chip with your name on it floating around in space. So when the aliens come, they'll know who to target.
Yeah. Or they say, wow, these humans aren't very green. They're leaving names floating around in space. These are the people we have to go slap on the wrist.
Or the aliens grab a hold of the chip and turn it into some sort of a a monster probe and send it back to Earth.
Man, I love outer space.
Yeah, me too. I've never been there, but maybe someday.
I heard the weather's nice.
Yeah. It's very, very cold in space. So there's some Star Trek 3 drama going on, some director drama.
I heard about this.
Yeah, it looks like Orsi is out as the director, but he's in some other role in the movie. That nothing. He hasn't really said exactly what it is, but he's implied that he's still involved somehow.
Wow, yeah, it's kind of troubling because, as you know, kind of weird it was to think about him directing a movie as his first movie, which, you know, that's a huge endeavor.
Oh yeah.
You still had to think about the fact that as we get closer to 2016 and the 50th anniversary of the show, we need a movie on the 50th anniversary. If Paramount does not release a movie to commemorate, during the anniversary year, that's unforgivable in my book. But as we get closer, we're weeks away from 2015. These movies don't put themselves together by themselves. I mean, there's a lot of pre-production and a lot of post-production work involved. So they've got to make some decisions and make them quick. And if they want to, take advantage of that anniversary year.
Yeah, for sure. It's for a movie to not even be filming yet. And be slated for 2016 it's kind of it's on the edge, because as far as I know, the script isn't even finalized. Yeah.
I mean, well, look at Star Wars right now, where we saw the teaser trailer for The Force Awakens, and that movie's not coming out till this time next year.
Yeah, exactly. So that just goes to show you how much time and effort is needed to put these big sci-fi movies together. So it looks like Jonathan Frakes has thrown his hat in the ring.
I would not have a problem with that. And I've also, and I don't know how much speculation this was, but I've read that Edgar Wright is either interested or being talked about to do it.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I think Edgar Wright, I mean, he's got a relationship with Simon Pegg, and he's got a great skill set. I think he's got definitely the skill set for it, and I think that would be an interesting choice. Jonathan Frakes would be really, really interesting because here you'd have this, guy who's only directed Star Trek when it's involved Next Gen and sort of directing himself even. But here he would be playing in this, the J.J. Abrams reboot universe. So I don't know. That would be cool.
It would be an interesting twist to see how he applies his directorial capabilities to an original series, or albeit a more modernized version of the TOS crew. But I'd be interested to see how it worked out.
Yeah, but when was the last big movie that he directed as well?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
it seems like he's doing a lot of TV work now, and it almost seems like, you reach a point where you can't go back. You know what I mean?
True. It sounds like a long shot. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think that would be gimmicky enough to get a lot of people excited about it.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's kind of why I also, last year when we talked about it, I had mentioned Nicholas Meyer.
Right.
For the same reason, you've got somebody with a proven track record in terms of Trek movies. You're instantly going to calm the fan base down if you bring somebody like that in.
Yeah, that would go a long way to getting your fan base on board. And, I know that they were bitterly divided over J.J. Abrams, so maybe bringing a former Trek-related director back into the fold for this one would maybe kind of go a little ways towards mending the ill will that's out there.
Yeah, they definitely got a lot to take care of here because they're coming off of Into Darkness, which was not incredibly well received by the fan base. And this is really their opportunity to deliver on the promise, if you believe there was a promise in the 2009 film, and I think there was.
Yeah.
So I'll always give them the benefit of the doubt, and
sure.
I do hope that as reported, this will be the start of the proper 5-year mission.
Yes, as do I. I was hoping the last movie would be the proper start, but I think that this one kind of has to be.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to jump into Day of the Dove?
Yes, sir.
All right. Day of the Dove first aired on November 1st, 1968. The remaster came on January 5th of 2008.
All right. And an extremely powerful non-corporeal being brings the Enterprise and a Klingon ship in direct conflict with one another.
All right. So, we will start on our scene-specific commentary. Cue up your DVDs or your Netflix or what have you. We will get started in 3, 2, 1. Check out that cool CGI sun there in the distance.
Yeah, you got a little of that simulated lens flare as well. I'm sure J.J. Abrams would be smiling if he was watching this with us.
Yeah, maybe that's where he got the inspiration from.
Yeah. And here we have Chekov coming down with the away team again.
Yeah, but finally, it's been a while since we've seen a no-name red shirt come down.
Yeah.
We've seen nothing but the main characters come down, and now finally we're getting another expendable red shirt guy. Yeah, I was a little surprised to see him because, it's been a while since we've had a red shirt death on a planet surface, and I don't think we're going to get one here.
No.
So, apparently there was some kind of colony here, about 100 people, completely wiped out, no evidence of their existence at all. Kirk is visibly shaken by this, even though it doesn't seem like he knew anybody there, but automatically raising the question, who and why. There was a distress call, and there's nobody there when they got there, so a little bit of a mystery. But fear not, there's a Klingon ship approaching, so maybe we have our answer. And I love how you get this hostility from Kirk immediately.
Yeah.
Upon hearing that the Klingons were there, and they're telling Spock that if you're attacked, you immediately retaliate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice that the Klingon beam looks different when they beam down? I like that effect. For a show with a very short budget, you would think they just reuse the same effect.
Yeah, it almost seems like they go left to right.
Yeah, without the sparkles, it looked almost like solid colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty neat.
And Kirk instantly gets like backhanded
He gets
there.
the pimp hand with the the Klingon disruptor.
Yeah, and we learn that the Klingons have been attacked as well, and Kang lost 400 people on his ship.
Yeah, I love how Kang knows who Kirk is by name.
Yeah, he's legendary already.
I love it. So I like the fact that in this series, there aren't a lot of episodes that make reference to other episodes. I mean, it happens every now and then, but there really wasn't any continuity that existed all the time. And I love when you have things like that kind of harken back to prior episodes where we were introduced to the hostility between the Federation and the Klingons, and they kept that bit of continuity there, which it's really nice to see.
Oh yeah. The one thing continuity wise that I don't really enjoy here is it seems like the look of the Klingon is they're different this episode than in previous episodes. I almost want to say that the skin tone and the coloring, it almost looks wet in this episode. Did you notice that on Kang?
I did. It looks like the makeup it's kind of thick and heavy and shiny.
Yeah, it looks like almost like cake batter or something.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I was a little bit I narrowed my eyes a little when I looked at it. I wasn't sure, if it was maybe it was the product of the remastering effect that made it look like that. But yeah, you look on Kang's face, it looks like the makeup is shiny and wet.
Yeah, it's just real. I think we still haven't seen anything better than the first time we saw the Klingons.
No, but we're finding out, though, speaking of backstory, that there's been a 3-year period of peace between the Klingons and the Federation, and I guess we're to assume that was back when they met with the Organians and they were forced to make peace with one another. Mm-hmm. I guess they've been doing pretty well since then. But now we've got a little bit of an instigation going on here. And, I have a question for you, Craig, since we're looking at a landing party from the Federation and a landing party from the Klingons. Mm-hmm. Now, how do the Klingons know which ones of their landing party are the expendable ones. All their uniforms are the same. Nobody's wearing a distinctive color to let you know which ones the aliens should pick off and which ones should survive.
Well, I think Klingons, their philosophy is probably a lot different than humans, and no one and everyone is expendable when you're a Klingon.
That's true. Good point. Good point. And another little bit of maybe insight into the Klingons here. There was just a little bit of an exchange between Kirk and Kang, where Kang is getting a little defiant. Kirk's getting a little defiant of Kang's requests and told Kang to go to the devil instead of go to hell.
Yeah.
But Kang replies, "We have no devil, Kirk." So is that a little bit of an insight into possibly the Klingons' religious affiliations or beliefs, or their non-beliefs, as it were?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Klingons would know what the word devil meant and know that there's no equivalent in their own society.
Well, obviously, Kang has seen Devil in the Dark.
Oh, well, good point.
That was way back in, season 1?
Yeah, well, he's had enough time to digest the things that have happened already, the Adventures of Captain Kirk. Hey, little Klingons have an agonizer.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah, so here we learn that Chekhov's brother was murdered by Klingons.
Yes,
and of course, by
Kilter.
the end of the episode, we'll learn that was all manufactured. But at this point, we're getting some false backstory for Chekhov.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that didn't turn out to be a real bit of backstory, because they don't really ever seem to flesh out Chekhov's character beyond, what the little bit we see of him being on a landing party or on the bridge. Like, you don't learn a heck of a lot about him.
Yeah. So now we have Kirk playing with his words, saying he's going to give the ship over to Kang, and once they're on the ship, no tricks.
Yeah, I love this. This is great.
And it's great because he gives I didn't really pick up what the code that Kirk gave Spock was, but Spock knows by the way Kirk talks to him and handles his communicator that they're going to be doing a wide beam with the transporter, which is something new for us as well.
Yeah, I believe so. Watch after Kirk issues the order, he actually presses a button on the communicator that makes a light show up on his chair where Spock is sitting. I was thinking they finally built that non-verbal alert system that we've talked about in the past. Like, see, he presses the button.
Yeah.
And I see, and there's the little light flashing. So, we've said in the past, why don't they have some system where they can just kind of squeeze the communicator or press the button on a communicator without having to actually say, we are in danger, or have a verbal code and have that message, like a Morse code type thing, sent up to the ship.
Yeah. But I mean, and I understand the episode would end, but why not just beam the crew up and leave the Klingons down on the planet?
That's a good question too. I'm not sure why they did it that way. Maybe Kirk knew that they were going to hold the Klingons in what we're going to learn in the Next Generation is called the pattern buffer. But in this series, we're just learning now that they can actually hold people's molecular structures in the transporter beam in the computer system and not materialize them until they choose to.
Yeah, well, that's how Scotty came back for Next Generation, right?
Yeah, and if you watch the Next Gen, you'll hear the term the pattern buffer quite a bit, and I guess that's where in computer terms they would store your pattern in a kind of a computerized memory buffer until they're able to materialize you. So the copy of you is kind of hanging out in that buffer. So this is the first time I remember them actually using something like that in the original series, though.
Yeah. And here is Scotty, and we talked about this on Facebook with Matt, but this is the debut of Scotty's new hair cut.
Yeah.
For season 3. The previous episodes, he had sort of that high hair. And here he's got a cut that he's a little bit more in tune with. And production-wise, I'm not sure when it was introduced, but this is the first time we're seeing it.
Yes, and it's also another series first right here.
Yeah, what, a female Klingon?
Yep, it's the only... Well, there's 2 of them. We only get to see the other one once, but this is the first and only time in the original series that we get to see a female Klingon.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. Pretty cool. And you'll notice here that Kirk's being very diplomatic
Yeah.
with these Klingons, and we're just kind of finding out that the Klingons, from what Mara was saying, have been fed anti-human propaganda by, they believe that humans and the Federation will torture them and put them in death camps as military prisoners. But, we as the viewers know that that's not how Starfleet operates. So we are left to imagine that back on the Klingon homeworld and throughout their fleet and their society, there must be fed some sort of anti-human, anti-Federation propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this episode has an undertone. It's a Cold War sort of undertone to it. Back in the 60s and beyond. I remember even in the 80s, we still had the Cold War going on between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So I think this episode has a lot of cues in it that make reference to the tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Yeah,
and I think we grew up at a really interesting time, and not to go on too much of a tangent here, but I was thinking about my elementary school the other day and how we had old desks from, that were either leftovers from, in some cases, the 50s and the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I also remember doing like bomb drills.
Yeah, air raid drills. Yep.
Yeah, where you get under your desk and
Yeah. That was a long time ago, man, but
yeah,
that was what they did. You'd hear the siren blow and everybody had to jump out of the chair and climb under the desk.
Yeah. But I remember having desks in elementary school and in middle school that had like the spot for the inkwell.
Yep.
Yep. It's amazing. I mean, now that stuff's, they're antiques, but at the time schools were still getting use out of it, the old wooden desk.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, schools hold on to stuff for quite a while, but.
So I wanted to ask you about this pinwheel effect.
Oh, on the little alien entity creature?
Yeah. Do you think they should have attempted a remaster there, or a polishing of that effect?
I don't know. I think it has some charm to it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't look horrible, but I think it's effective for what it is. So I think it's fine.
Yeah,
it's just tasteful to leave it alone.
Well, that's the thing, and I think that illustrates, their approach on this show, and it just always sort of, makes me think when they, how they made their decisions and what they decided to keep and what they decided to sort of redo, and the pinwheel was one of them. For lack of a better word, I'll call it a pinwheel.
Yeah, I don't know what else to call it, but some strange things going on here, by the way.
Yeah, Uhura is very, very frustrated by her lack of ability to communicate.
Yeah, and how often do you see Uhura lose her cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of people kind of starting to lose their cool here for seemingly no reason. But, I wanted to ask you another question.
All right.
If you were Captain Kirk, would you hold all of the Klingons in one room together?
If I was Captain Kirk?
Separate them up? Wouldn't you put some in, in the brig and some? I mean, is it really wise, Captain Kirk, to put all of those Klingons in the same room together?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if that's sort of Kirk's arrogance or his belief in his security detail.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I just thought, you see, 40 Klingons in a room together. It's, stands to reason they could bum rush you when you open the door. I mean,
yeah,
or otherwise come up with some sort of an escape plot. But so engines are at warp 9 right now, and once again we've lost control of the ship.
Yeah, it's barreling on its way out of the galaxy, as Kirk said.
Yeah. So I don't know. Strangely enough, we this is one of those plot devices where we know there's an alien on board.
Yeah.
But the characters and the show don't yet know.
Yeah.
That there's an alien aboard. So we know what's causing it, but they don't. So.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Kang here real quick?
Yeah, sure. And I think it bears to mention too, before we actually talk about Kang, that it was originally planned for Kor and John Colicos to come back and reprised the role of Kor, but he had a prior commitment to another film, so he wasn't able to come back. So this is why we have Kang instead of Kor.
Yeah, and we have a little bit of action about to happen where the Klingons and the Enterprise crew are getting an indication that there's something going on here, whereas weapons have materialized and the crew's phasers have turned to bladed weapons. So they're going to be expected to engage in blunt combat.
And wouldn't that be your first indication that something else was going on here? That, when you see phasers turning into swords and swords appearing seemingly out of nowhere, wouldn't you think that, wait a minute, guys?
Yeah.
This is either some sort of an illusion or a shared dream, or, another one of these all-powerful aliens is afoot.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too far off base, but we were talking about Kang, played by Michael and Zara, who died back over the summer in 2013. He was 91 years old, so
a good life.
He was active from 44 to 2001, and he played Kang on 2 other Star Trek series.
Really?
He was on the DS9 episode Blood Oath and the Voyager episode Flashback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
So, not familiar with either one of those episodes off the top of my head, but definitely interested in watching those in proximity to this, just to see Kang again.
Sure, and I'm sure he was also involved in many other 60s television shows that most of the other guest stars were involved in, Outer Limits type stuff.
Yeah. He had a pretty busy career. He was active for almost 50 years.
That's fantastic. Sounds like he lived a heck of a full life. So Spock, of course, is the only one who really thinks about these swords materializing out of nowhere, and he the instantaneous transmutation of matter, and he says the Klingons don't possess that power. They don't possess that power. So there's something else going on here that they're not aware of.
Yeah.
So, and here's Chekov.
Yeah, with his personal score to settle.
Yeah, mutinying. Is that how is it mutinying? I don't know. Is the act of mutiny? Is mutinying? Probably not. But okay.
He's
I'll leave
performing a mutiny?
Yeah, friend of the show, Steve, can correct me on that one. He loves to correct my English, so I'll be looking out for a message on Sunday later in the day from Steve telling me I mutinying is not correct.
So here we have Sulu correcting Chekhov's information here, and he lets Kirk know that Chekov didn't have a brother.
Right, he was an only child.
Yeah,
an only child. So now we're left to imagine that this alien is somehow manipulating the minds of the crew of the Enterprise and the Klingons, and it's also gone out of its way to trap 392 of the Enterprise crew members in the bowels of the ship to make the odds between the remaining Enterprise crew and the Klingons aboard even. So it's a completely evenly matched. I think it's like 38 to 38 or something of that nature. So even McCoy's losing it here.
Yeah, he's really fired up, man.
Yeah, I got to hand it to DeForest Kelley. Did a great performance in this episode. I mean, you really can feel the tension and the anger.
Yeah, he's hot, man.
And they sprayed him with water, too. He looked like he's sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
So more red shirts are limping in with piercing and slashing wounds. And the Klingons are looking to take the ship over. But Spock has used the ship's sensors to detect other life forms that were not Klingon or human. So we at least we have some inkling now that the Enterprise crew is starting to figure out what's really going on here. So,
do you want to talk real quick about the Klingon female makeup, Mara's makeup here?
Sure.
The lips really bother me.
Really? The eyes bother me.
Okay. Well, we can agree that the female Klingon makeup isn't well executed.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more subtle eye makeup. This obviously looks like it looks to me like she went to a makeup mirror and put makeup on because she's got colored eyeshadow on, which is seems a little bit unnatural for a Klingon. You wouldn't think Klingons would wear vanity makeup like that.
Yeah, well, even her lips look almost pink.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. For me, I don't know if maybe I'm spoiled by where Klingons ended up, but I don't know. It almost seems like we're looking at a human doing Klingon cosplay or something.
Yeah, perhaps. I guess maybe we're spoiled because we've seen the Klingons of the quote unquote future.
Yeah,
and we're used to them. And female Klingons are much more common in the future. In fact, you see them quite often. So, and we've seen what they look like. So maybe, we're judging these female Klingons through the lens of the future, and maybe that's not fair. But
yeah, no, it's definitely not fair. But it's definitely interesting to see the progression between where they started and where they ended up, and really how things can evolve and actually improve. It doesn't always have to be, well, it happened first, so it's the best.
True, exactly. You notice Sulu's wielding a samurai sword?
Oh, he's got to love it.
Like a katana. You think that was on purpose? Had to be on purpose. I love this Klingon subterfuge where they're crawling in. That doesn't seem very Klingon to me.
Yeah.
You would think they just run right in there. Charge right in. And Scotty gets this ornate saber with a tassel on the bottom. So very very Scottish almost.
Yeah.
And watch this scene. Notice that the Federation guys disarm and knock out the Klingons, whereas the Klingons go for the kill immediately.
Oh, that's a great observation.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because Sulu comes in and does the knockout karate chop, and knocks the one Klingon guy out, and the other red shirt guy just kind of did a little smack to the back of the head to knock the other Klingon out. So you would have thought they'd go right for the stab, but that's not the case. So Spock has now identified that is a single alien life force.
Yeah.
Composed of pure energy. The ship's computer systems and scanners are pretty sophisticated. If it can figure all that out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially considering the size of the ship.
Yeah, it's quite a large ship. Did you notice how much more high-pitched Majel Barrett's computer voice is in this episode?
Yeah, it almost made me question whether it was her or not.
Yeah, it seems much different than what we're used to hearing. I don't know if there's an explanation for that. This is one of those situations where I wish we had the season 3, These Are the Voyages book. Maybe Mark has some information on that in here. Would have been nice. But maybe once we get the book, we'll go back and check that out and see if we can find an explanation for that.
Yeah.
So, and Spock is theorizing that the alien is capable of manipulating matter and mind. And, this is another one of those episodes where I don't know where they would have been without Spock.
Yeah.
Spock didn't make these observations and detect the alien in the first place. I mean, who knows? Do you think they would have figured this out instead of kind of being at war with each other for eternity?
Yeah.
I don't know. And here is what I think is one of the best DeForest Kelley performances of this season. This is a fantastic speech by McCoy. Overhearing Spock and Kirk talking about trying to use diplomacy with the Klingons and come to an agreement sets him into a frenzy, talking about how the Klingons they have slave labor and death planets, and he actually winds up calling Kirk and Spock out on whether or not they're real military men.
Yeah,
because the Klingons are murderers, and we know that McCoy is under the influence of the alien entity, and it's affecting his mind. But still, he actually makes some good points. that Kirk and Spock are resorting to diplomacy when you know that the Klingons wouldn't do the same.
Right.
And they've already killed many, many, many Federation people, whether there was complete evidence of it or not, but they've always had these tensions. So, McCoy, maybe rightly so. We're apparently at war right now with these Klingons, so why are we attempting to bury the hatchet, as Kirk said? I don't know. I guess it's supposed to kind of keep up the kind of losing the words that I had in my mind here, but it's kind of keeping up the goodness of the Federation in the face of any dire situation.
Right.
Kirk being completely unflappable and always trying to come out with a good solution in the end. All right.
So we got some a dark bridge here, which is a kind of interesting look where they just shut the lights, and so their support systems have been turned off.
Yeah, Kang and his people apparently know how to disable the life support systems on every place in the ship except for where the Klingons are. So we've seen this kind of thing done before too. I believe that happened in Space Seed, didn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so now I guess everybody who's on board that ship has access to the ship's schematics and control diagrams, so they can just figure out, like, they just kind of go into a little manual and say, okay, how do I disable the life support systems in this ship? Oh, page 221, paragraph 3. Okay, here we go. Okay, press this button, and that button. Okay, done.
Yeah, and Scotty's really upset by the fact that the Klingons are going to sort of poach our technology.
Yeah, he's rattling his saber at Kirk.
Yeah, now we're going to get that slur, green-blooded half-breed, which made me think back to What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Yep, that was a good one. Yeah, we've heard some Vulcan slurs. We called him a freak too. Very interesting scene here that we're gonna get between a fight between Spock and Scotty.
Yeah, and Spock was about to come down with a blow that I'm not sure Scotty would have recovered from.
No, that looked like a serious hammer
That was like
drop.
the kill shot, right?
Yeah, it looked like he was gonna go right for the throat with that.
Woof.
Yeah, he's lucky Kirk stepped in.
Right?
Wow.
I'm not sure Scotty appreciates it.
No, well, I think he had to snap out of the influence of the alien there. But, another question. When we came back from the commercial break there, back from the fade out, we got a little bit of an audience refresher on the plot up till this point in the form of a captain's log.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that in a situation like this where life support's been cut off and they're in a position where they've got to figure something out, Kirk would actually want to take the time to record that?
No. I think it's important to document it.
Yeah, but wouldn't they have the ship's log? I mean, the black box to tell him everything that went down on the ship? I mean, he could figure out, well, listen, when I'm laying on the floor suffocating with my last breath, that's when I'll make the recording. But it seems like his energy would be better used to figure out a way out of this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, now he's starting to figure out that this is a war that's staged by this alien entity, that everything is so perfect. The sides are even, the weapons are even. Now and he's kind of calling into question. He's kind of giving a little bit of a commentary on war here, and talking about how there's the power on high is kind of moving the pawns around the game board while it sits back and watches and collects the spoils, and all the pawns keep being moved, and what's the game? So yet another social commentary on, I guess, governments and people in power that don't actually go and fight the wars, but send all of their people to do it for them.
Yeah.
And maybe even enjoy it.
Oof.
Yeah. It kind of seems like where he's going with it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of powerful when you think about it, because we could even say that some of that may still be happening today in 2014.
Oh, totally.
And beyond.
And I love the bridge lighting there.
I love how it comes back on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I guess while we're looking at technical aspects, we might as well mention director Marvin Chomsky, who we last saw this season. He did 3 episodes total. His first episode was "And the Children Shall Lead," and we'll next see his work on "All Our Yesterdays."
All right, I like that one.
So yeah, he got 3 episodes in season 3 to work with.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I guess we might as well talk about Mara now too, as well.
Sure.
That's actress Susan Howard, born 1944. She might be known to a lot of people for Dallas. She was on that show from 79 to 87.
Oh, get out.
And she was nominated for an Emmy sometime between 74 and 76 for a TV show that I'm not familiar called Petrocelli.
Nope, doesn't sound familiar to me.
And she is now active in politics, very involved in Second Amendment rights, and is on some kind of position in the NRA of all places.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Interesting. All right. So here's another one of these interesting hallway shots
with great music by Fred Steiner.
Oh, fantastic!
I'm not sure if this was repurposed music or not, but the combination of that really, really artful shot and that music is just such a great marriage.
Oh, for sure. And I think that was handheld because you could see a little bit of camera shake.
Yeah.
As it was moving down the hallway, but whoever did it had a pretty steady hand.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. I love the corridor shots in season 3 so far. We get so many of them. There's a long shot of Chekhov coming down that ladder there. Now, here's something that occurred to me while I was watching this episode the other day in preparation for this, and I wanted to throw this out at you here while we're watching this. If this episode was made today for a modern audience, do you think this episode would have been a perfect setup for a Chekhov death scene?
Ooh.
Yeah. Chekhov is out for revenge. He's going to attack, some Klingons here. Don't you think that, because, today everything is dark. All of our TV shows are very, very, violent and depressing. And you think of shows like The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and Sons of Anarchy, and there's all sorts of grit going on television. It just seemed to me that this would have been an episode where they could have taken out a main character.
Yeah.
And especially now, I mean, look, this is like a very weird, awkward. This may be more awkward than the evil Kirk and Janice Rand sexual assault scene.
Yeah.
This is very, very weird. It's like Chekhov is going to, have his way with this Klingon woman. And, he's got his hands over her mouth and he's like kind of forcing himself on her. This is very odd.
Yeah, and man, Kirk is having none of it.
No, I love it. The big hero went, the big slaps.
That was like he palmed him.
Yeah, backhand and then a palm.
Yeah, and Kirk instantly regrets it.
Yeah, well, I think it was the right thing to do. I mean, Chekhov was obviously out of his head, but you have to kind of feel for the Klingon woman there and for Mara, because that had to be a frightening experience.
Well, that's the other thing. You almost wonder how a next gen female Klingon would have played that.
That would have never happened. Never happened. It's interesting that in the original series here that the Klingon women are not portrayed as being as tough or warrior-like as the men, but in Next Generation and beyond, sometimes the women are even more vicious than the men. So how strong is Shatner? Picking up Walter Koenig and walking down the hall with him in his hands that's crazy.
Yeah, but Chekhov, shouldn't his head be dangling back?
Yeah, you would think.
He tucked it forward, I guess, to make it easier to carry him. But like that head should be. Oh,
it should be totally flopped backwards if he was out cold. Yeah, good observation. Yeah. So another interesting tidbit here about the alien apparently has the ability to heal the wounds of anybody on the ship there. So this war could be going on perpetually.
Yes.
You could you take a sword to the gut, and an hour or two later, the alien has you healed up and you're ready for combat again. So we have to wonder why this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spock surmises that the alien entity wants them alive, and Kirk is starting to get the idea that it's another alien that wants them to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think back on episodes like Gamesters of Triskelion, right? And I guess the upcoming Plato's Stepchildren, where they're forced to act out bizarre scenes. And I guess aliens really like watching humans do uncomfortable and silly things.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, this all seems to tie back into like the tests that aliens are constantly putting humans through on this show, to test, if they're savages or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. We've gotten that test many times. And I think this is, this alien is kind of like Rejek in a way from Wolf in the Fold, because it thrives on negative emotion, violence, hatred. It seems to feed on it, which I kind of thought was neat, because they use that red color cast on the pinwheel entity there to show that it's turning angry or making people angry or feeling that negative emotion. And when it doesn't feel that way, it turns into a more colorful, brighter cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I thought it was a very cool effect, and they didn't necessarily even have to do that, but I think the red light cast is very effective. I like how they're casting the gelled red light on Kirk and the red shirt there.
Yeah, and we get that great nerve pinch moment.
The first of two.
Oh, is there a second one?
Yeah. There's another one coming up. And I like how they actually changed the color, the tint of the lighting during that scene. So it was kind of neat that they went far enough to do that subtle lighting change to show that the entity had also changed its color. Because obviously there's no violence going on. As soon as Spock nerve pinched the red shirt, all of that negative energy went away. So it's reflecting immediately in the color tone.
Right.
The alien. Pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
Pretty cool. So we've seen a salt vampire. Now we're seeing a hate vampire.
Yes.
Violent vampire. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
I guess since we've talked about actors, directors, we might as well talk about writer Jerome Bixby, who we've seen on the show before, way back on Mirror, Mirror, which he wrote. He also provided the story for By Any Other Name. And we'll see his work one last time in Requiem for Methuselah.
All right. That's not too far away either.
Nope.
It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, it surprised me to see that he was involved with Mirror, Mirror. That was a name that for an episode that's important, that important, I should have remembered his name. I don't know why when I was looking him up for this episode, I didn't make that connection.
No, I always remember the name because of Bill Bixby.
Yeah.
I always like the name Bixby. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And it also makes you wonder why he didn't get more assignments, coming off of an episode as strong as Mirror, Mirror.
Oh, for sure. That's one of the most iconic Trek episodes of all time, I think. So Kirk is going to attempt to negotiate here with Kang and get him to understand and I was a little bit shocked that Mara would try to tip Kang off or actually lie to him and tell him that it was a trick.
Yeah.
Because she saw the entity, firsthand. She knew it was real. And so far, Kirk and Spock haven't tried to kill her or hurt her in any way. I mean, maybe she's, rightfully skeptical, but, I'm not sure what she planned to gain by, telling Kang that it was a lie when she clearly knew that the entity was real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not working, though, so Kirk is not able to negotiate with Kang. So, once again, we're back to square one here, where Kirk and company are the only ones that know about this entity. So how are we going to get out of this interesting conundrum.
Totally.
Yeah. So the alien has also introduced another late in the game time bomb into the episode. So apparently the dilithium crystals are fading.
Right, yeah, so here's our ticking time bomb.
Yep, here's our final ticking time bomb of the episode. And I thought it was kind of cool that Kirk says Captain's Log Stardate Armageddon.
Yeah.
That was neat. That's the first time we've heard him get funny with the star date.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever heard him make a reference like that prior to this. And I think this episode is one of the few original series episodes that does not have a star date. There are others.
Yeah, there's a handful of them.
Yeah, the only time reference we have here is an assumed one, which was the 3-year peace between the Klingons and the Federation. And if we assume that that was from the Organian Treaty, then you kind of have this episode approximately 3 years after that one. So approximately 3 years after season 1.
Which makes you wonder how the whole 5-year mission's working.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess we've determined that star dates are not really measurements of time, right?
No.
So, we really can't go by star dates as far as, to try to figure out when things occurred. So we don't really know how long. I guess theoretically you could say 3 seasons of the show, they were in space for 5 years. So
yeah.
But I guess we try to say each season is 1 year, because it's kind of the accepted way of looking at it. But
and Kang just called a Kirk bluff here.
Yeah, Kirk and company were threatening to kill Mara, and I guess that's enough to convince her that this thing wasn't a ruse and the alien is real. And she's actually going to side with Kirk and Spock, which I don't know if next-gen Klingons would have ever done.
No.
Yeah, I think they may have been too proud. But then again, we do see Worf as part of the Enterprise crew, and also part of the Deep Space Nine crew, and we've seen various other Klingons in a more docile state at times. So maybe that could change.
Yeah, and you also wonder if she's doing this as a wife.
Oh, perhaps, yeah.
More interested in, the safety of her husband, and as opposed to, her duty as a Klingon.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. Yeah, maybe I guess once again we're looking at her through the eyes of the future Klingons, and maybe the vision back then is that the Klingon women were more empathetic, and maybe possibly more like human women than Klingon men are like human men.
Mm-hmm.
So
now we get introduced to the idea of intership beaming or transporting.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of struck me as odd about this intership beaming thing is that they still need to go to the transporter pads to be sent somewhere.
Yeah.
Couldn't they just be beamed from wherever they were to the pads and then directly from the pads to where they were going?
Yeah, I have lots of problems with the transporter technology and the hows and whys and when you need a pad and when you don't. It's one of the biggest pieces of technology on Star Trek that I don't give a pass.
Yeah, understood. And this is another one where someone has to stay behind to operate the panel rule is suspended. Yeah. So Spock says, okay, you have 8 seconds to make it to the pads after you activate the transporter.
Right.
So once again, no consistency in that someone has to stay behind rule. We've heard that rule used many times.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact that Kirk went into this situation unarmed.
Yeah.
Super brave.
Yeah,
bold
it shows
Kirk move.
Yeah, it shows his trust of Mara as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I love those kind of subtle but bold Kirk moves, and that consistency in his character throughout the entire series You know, he's always winds up being that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reason why he's Captain Kirk in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I was wondering too? Another one of these weird. Oh, the makeup doesn't look as.
It doesn't look as pudding. You know, as much like pudding.
No, but you know, it's one thing I was wondering about this too. Is that wouldn't this be another one of those great opportunities to harken back to a prior experience where they used the nerve gas on the Enterprise to knock out the intruders?
Oh, right.
Don't you think they could have done that here? Just gassed engineering.
Yeah.
Knocked them all out. Guess not. But interesting threat by Kang here. After Kirk kind of tries to clue him in that the alien will just heal him even if he kills him, Kang says he's going to chop him up into pieces.
Yeah.
And he no doubt you'll reassemble after I've hacked you to bits.
Oof.
That's kind of brutal.
It is.
And you know, going back to what Mark Cushman said, they were trying to tone down, or they were given the instructions to tone down the violence in this season. But we've seen a couple of very violent things this episode. The quasi-sexual assault scene and some of the sword fighting and the violent threats from Kang there.
Yeah, and we just had the second nerve pinch, which was sort of done in a wide shot.
Yeah, so Spock could kind of pinch and run, if it were, to get into the other room here. So, and it comes in and really doesn't do anything, though.
No, just in time to see sort of, to be witnesses to the final.
The wrap up,
yeah.
I love it. He fights his way in urgently, and then he's like, "Oh, hey, McCoy's here. How's it going? What are you guys up to?" Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get Kang is gonna be convinced that the alien is in control, and we'll come to a little bit of a resolution here. And once again, I love that red gelled lighting they're using there.
Oh, it's great.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it almost makes me think of when they put the French fries under the heat lamp.
Oh yeah, it does kind of look like a heat lamp, doesn't it? I love it. Here's another great Kirk speech too.
Yeah, great Shatner moment.
Yeah, and I love how they have his hair all messed up and he's sweating here, and he's kind of giving Kang the what for, if you will.
Yeah, but I also look how he looks off towards the pinwheel as well.
Yeah, sort of acknowledging that it's there.
Yeah, and if you follow his eyes there, it shows that there's particular moments where he decided who he was gonna be looking at.
True. I wonder if that was the director telling him to do that, or if he did it himself. Yeah.
Either way, it sort of impacts the words that he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
And even Kang here has a tough job. Michael has a tough job there as well in terms of there's very little dialogue until this point where he's got to sell everything Kirk's saying.
Yeah, and still try to sort of keep acknowledging that the entity is kind of look at this piece of tape up on the wall kind of thing. I always love hearing actors and actresses talk about acting in monster movies or movies where they have to go back and post and add the creature or monster or what have you into the scene. So they're actually acting at nothing. Look at that piece of tape on the floor and read your lines, or be afraid of this roll of tape, sitting on top of this desk.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. It's fascinating that they can pull that off and do it so well.
Yeah. And not to get into a whole discussion about Star Trek or Star Wars, which we seem to do every once in a while in here. Say what you will about the prequel films, but the original DVD releases of those films had some really great documentaries on them that dealt with how they did a lot of the effects works in terms of informing the actors. The guy that played Jar Jar Binks, Ahmed Best, basically wore a Jar Jar suit with a Jar Jar hat on his head, which gave the actors the eye line, which is, it's a really cool documentary to watch, regardless of how you feel about the Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Well, we'll let it rest at that. we don't have much time left in the show, so we don't want to derail too much.
Yeah, so. And this is great. They're sort of they're they're taking away this alien's powers.
Yeah, by goofing around a little bit and shooing it away as if it were some sort of a fly or a bug. Yeah,
it's almost, akin to saying, I'm not listening to you anymore, And the Kang gets a little too into the fun and hits Kirk on the back pretty hard there.
And it looked like Kirk was about to turn around and swing back at him.
Yeah. But there was slight bullying of the pinwheel there.
Yeah, the poor pinwheel, man. It must be really depressing. I mean, it probably was only doing what it knew, and here are these guys, making fun of him. It's almost like school bullying.
Yeah. So, here we are at the end, and I guess it's time to talk about whether or not Day of the Dove is essential viewing. And do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Well, I could go first. I mean, are you on the fence, or are you sure?
No, I think I'm pretty sure, and I think that the reasons you give are the reasons I'll give. So I'll let you go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm going to vote essential on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
For several different reasons. The first and only appearance of a female Klingon, I don't know if that alone is enough, but I think that's pretty cool, pretty significant. First use of intership beaming.
Yeah, that was my main thing.
A couple of, we learned what the size of the crew complement of a Klingon ship, approximately 440 crew members on a Klingon bird of prey, so that's pretty cool to know. As far as the Enterprise, we also learned that the officers' quarters are somewhere on deck 6. So we see that in the some of the hallway shots. There's some signs on the wall that have some room numbers on them. So it appears that the officers' quarters, it says officers' quarters, so assuming they're somewhere on deck 6. We also learned that there's a emergency manual control area on the Enterprise. That's the famous Jeffries tube, and we saw Sulu in it. Very briefly earlier on in the episode. And let's see, a couple other minor little tiny things that I don't know if they completely affected the essentialness or not, but the Klingons have a portable torture device similar to the Agonizer from Mirror Mirror. So I'll pull the plug there and then let you go. Sorry.
No, I think you pretty much hit on everything I was going to hit on and more. This is really all, sort of, tech related and Klingon related. And I guess you could argue that any original series episode that has the Klingons is going to skew towards being essential just because there's Klingons on it.
Yeah.
Or Romulans or, any other really important alien race in the Star Trek, sort of canon.
Yep. I agree. These are the iconic alien races, that recur and recur and recur throughout the entire run of almost all of the series. So, and even in the new JJ movies, we finally saw some Klingons.
Yeah.
So, granted, they look a little bit different this time around, but they're there. And we also get Kang, who comes back 2 more times. So. Another introduction of another recurring Klingon character.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So double essential vote for Day of the Dove. And that wraps up the 62nd episode of the Tricorder Transmissions.
Wow, look at us, man.
Yeah, we're rolling right along. We are rolling right along. And as always, you can talk to us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Tricorder Transmissions. On Twitter at TTT_pod. And, of course, you can find us at the tricordertransmissions.com.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else from you, Craig?
No, not at all. Just always enjoy talking these Trek episodes with you, and I'll see you next Sunday.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
In Errand of Mercy, we met the Organians who forced the Federation and the Klingon Empire to cease hostilities. They formed an uneasy peace, and in this next episode, it's been about 3 years since the treaty has been in force, and each side is still Mistrustful of the other, old hatreds die hard. It parallels the tension between the United States and the Soviet Union in the late 1960s. There were those in power who would have escalated the conflict in Southeast Asia, and there were others who would have ceased fighting altogether. The factions were known respectively as the Hawks and the Doves. This episode gives away its underlying sympathies with its title, The Day of the Dove.
So you really hit a sore spot. That's the problem. The character never became became a more dimensional person. And that is the science fiction irony of my life, because as we moved on into the future, you know, we went into, not only did we do 2 years on the series, we did 7 movies. And you know, technology changed, and all of that was addressed in the stories that we did as the years went by. The characters themselves, Chekov, Sulu, Scotty, Uhura, they remained in the past. They never developed. And that, as I say, is the bitter irony of my experience on Star Trek. I'm not bitter. I was disappointed. I do have I am totally bonded to Star Trek, and I will take that with me to my grave, and my relationships with all the people. And I am enormously grateful for the opportunity it gave me, and for the fact that I was able to, earn a living and to support my family for those 30 years. Star Trek. Because it had integrity. At its best, it had integrity. It was a show that I could feel proud about. I could feel that we're doing something that's important. Sure, we're telling fanciful stories, but we're also creating we're giving good entertainment, and we're creating a universe that people can rejoice in. I think, we were doing it with literacy, we were doing it with intelligence, and we were doing it with great love. So all those things made Star Trek important to me, and have continued to this day.
Michael Ansara, who stars as the Klingon Captain Kang, was a well-known face to television viewers in the 60s. He specialized in playing exotic heroes and villains in The Outer Limits, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Time Tunnel, and Land of the Giants, among others. And speaking of Klingons, The Day of the Dove is the only episode of the original series to feature a female Klingon. Wardrobe designer Bill Tice did a wonderful job of feminizing the typical Klingon uniform, and the makeup job for actress Susan Howard gave her character Mara an element of realism. And so another creature that feeds on negativity gets its just rewards. Remember Red Jack in Wolf in the Fold? That murderous entity fed on fear. In The Day of the Dove, it was hatred that both defined and nourished the creature. It's interesting to note the creature's innate ability to create false memory. Only in recent court cases have psychiatric experts validated such a concept. Like the theory of parallel universes, this was yet another instance where our fiction became an odd reflection of some small part of the real world.